So when did you get your first job? If your parents were telling you had to pay for your clothes at 13 and stuff, did you start working at a young age? Or
Oh yeah, I was working in high school. I mean, I had many jobs.
Like what?
You know.
What were you doing?
I worked in the kitchen at a nursing home.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy. I was a waitress. I was a hat check girl when those still existed. A Polynesian restaurant. Yeah, I was a babysitter, of course, like the traditional girl job.
Did you go to college? You went to?
I did, but I didn't go right away. My parents told me I couldn't go to college because they didn't have enough money.
Oh, dang.
So I went to work in a bank, and after about 2 months, I'm like, if I stay here, I'm going to be doing exactly the same thing every day for the rest of my life.
Right.
And I had this moment that I remember. You know how you remember like these isolated moments from your life, like when you look back, you remember the moment, the scene, right? And I remember I was in the bank and I was looking out the window of the bank, and a red pickup truck pulled up. And this cool girl and boy got out of the pickup truck. Okay. Or maybe they got in the pickup, something.
Sure, yeah.
And it's like, oh, I could be them. I could get in this truck and I could be cool and I could leave this place,
Yeah.
And that was the vision. And,
wow.
And I got into the University of Wisconsin. I don't know why there, but I was the only place I applied. I got in. I went.
Wait, that's the only place you applied? That's so random.
I went in January. I'd never been west of the Delaware River.
Wow, that's so random.
It was freezing.
I went to Minnesota, so
really?
I hate you right now, just so you know.
All right, we're supposed to hate each other. That's right.
Well, I was the mascot of Minnesota, so
really?
I'm really supposed to hate you.
What is the mascot?
Goldie Gopher.
Oh, wow.
We're actually really good friends with Bucky Badger, so it's all good. But playfully, we hate you.
Yeah.
But that's so funny that you only applied to that one place that you'd never been or experienced. That's interesting.
I think I heard of it and I thought, oh, I guess that's supposed to be good. I'll just go there. So
how did you end up going there if you didn't have you're like, whatever, I'll go into debt?
My parents made me save the money I was making at the bank, and so I had however much. $100. It wasn't very expensive. I had enough to go the first semester. I mean, this is all like incredibly pathetic, but I think I had like $11 in spending money because
that's not pathetic. I feel like that's most college kids.
For the whole semester. I mean, it was pretty hardcore.
Yeah, that is pretty impressive. I feel like I had $11 for like a month of time. All my roommates, we used to just
I know you're really
ramen
poor.
Everywhere.
And I think it was easier to be poor then. I think there was less stuff around. There was less to do, and everybody was poorer. And then
what did you study at Wisconsin?
With journalism.
So where did that come from? Up until this point, it doesn't seem like that was something that was
a job. It was like I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't really know what kind of job you could get if you were a writer. I mean, I guess you could be a writer, but I knew that you couldn't be a novelist and no one was going to hire you. I had this very working class vision of what people did to make money. What you did to make money was you had a job.
Yeah.
And journalism was a job. You could go work at a newspaper or a magazine or something like that. So.
But I guess I'm confused. Up until this point, you weren't writing. It didn't seem like you had an interest in that. Where did that just was that just sort of in the back of your head? Like acting was always in the back of my head, but it wasn't something I actively did until late 20s, actually.
Wow.
So is it just something similar where you're like, I want to be a writer, but I have to focus on this. I have to focus on this.
Well, I asked my father when I was going to go to college that I said I couldn't decide between art and writing. And he said, I have to be honest with you. You're lousy at art. Study writing.
What? Have you made the whole family clothes and everything?
And years later, I told him that. He's like, no. I said, you're lousy at writing. Study art. But by then it was too late. It was way too late.
That's pretty funny.
I know. So I guess it was like I had to do something practical, but I wasn't a very practical person. I wasn't going to be a chemist. I wasn't going to be a business woman. I didn't have any aptitude for those things or interest in those things.
Sure.
And I kind of had the feeling, maybe because of the red truck, that there was something else out there,
Yeah.
I knew there were people who wrote books. I had never actually met any of them. Or, like my kids, I'm a writer. My ex-husband is a journalist. They grew up knowing other, artists and writers
Right.
and people who did that. But I didn't have that growing up.
Yeah.
And
well,
yeah.
it is interesting. I mean, I question your idea behind it, but at the same time, I mean, I feel like all of us make a decision when we're 18 to major in something, and yet we don't know who we are. We don't know what we want to be. We just, it's sort of this awkward forced decision we have to make, and then we're stuck with it, sadly, which sucks. Because like I studied engineering.
Oh, wow.
I'm not using engineering at all.
Why though? Why did you do that?
I mean, they said you're good at math, go do engineering. It makes a lot of money, and I was like, okay, I'll go do it. I mean, it wasn't even something I was super interested in. I mean, I just was excelled in math and science. So, yeah, it's a weird decision to have to make at such an early age. It seems like.
Yeah, and I do see. When I was in my 20s, I did a lot of like casting around. I mean, like most people, and I worked as a waitress.
Right.
Kind of, worked at a bunch of dumb jobs and kind of was a little bit aimless. And I always blame myself, but watching my kids at that stage of life, it's like, no, that's what that stage of life
absolutely.
is like.
Yeah. You're just still figuring out what you like. I feel like your brain, I've heard this recently, where your brain is still developing until your mid-20s, right? So how are you supposed to know any of that, what you want to do or who you are at that point?
I don't know.
It's weird.